Some nights, ordinary houses hide the darkest secrets, and the stories you're about to hear will chill you to the bone. So listen carefully, and don't forget to subscribe. My best friend Anthony wanted me to come over for the night since his parents would be gone all weekend. I rode my bike over and put it in his backyard before letting myself in through the back door. We played basically every video game he had, from FIFA all the way to Call of Duty, with popcorn and other junk food spilled out all over the floor. As the night progressed, we moved from video games to watching half a movie, getting bored, to doing prank calls. Around 10 p.m., Anthony made a few calls to different pizza places. When it was my turn, I just dialed a few random numbers, hoping to get someone at home. On my fourth attempt, I finally reached somebody, a guy with a deep, rough voice who picked up with a yeah instead of hello. Anthony's laughing in the background made me stumble over my words mid-sentence, cracking up into laughter. I'd never done a prank call before, so I sucked at it. The guy on the other end was silent. I regained my composure and tried to continue. Sir, would it be all right if I borrowed one of the wheels from your car? What's your name, kid? He asked. My name is Bob. Really? You sure it's not Anthony? It hit me like a brick. I looked up at Anthony, whose face was now full of fear. I hung up, not wanting to be on the line another second. Anthony, who the hell was that? I asked. I don't know, he said. I asked if his caller ID showed his name. No, it shows my dad's name. We went on the computer to figure out how it was possible for someone to get Anthony's name so quickly. He was too young to be on any personal info sites. We even posted a question on Yahoo Answers, but no one had any answers. I suggested calling his dad, but Anthony didn't want to. His dad didn't know I was over. We planned to sleep in the living room and resumed watching the movie from earlier. Then we heard the front storm door open. The front doorknob began to turn but stopped halfway because of the lock. Anthony turned off the TV. I peeked out the window. A tall man was standing outside. He noticed me, so I dropped the blinds and froze. We heard the backyard gate open. I cursed, realizing I'd left the back door unlocked. When I went to shut it, a silhouette was standing there, looking in. He stepped inside. I ran back to Anthony and we hurried upstairs, crawling under his bed. We heard him walking through the house, closer and closer, until he was in the room. Anthony's breathing was too loud, so I covered his mouth. Silence. For so long I thought he was gone. I whispered, "You think we can make a run for it?" Anthony was about to answer when a horrifying scream erupted, and he was dragged from under the bed. I grabbed a screwdriver from the nightstand and stabbed the man in the back. He screamed and let go, giving us time to escape. We hid in the woods, but the man followed. We eventually lost him and ran back to the house, locking the back door. When I turned on the backyard light, I saw him standing by the woods. He turned and disappeared. We never saw him again. That was 5 years ago. Was it related to the prank call? I don't know. But that's how Anthony and I almost died during a break-in. One night, after a huge argument with my wife over something as petty as leaving the toilet seat up, I called my buddy Paul to see if I could crash at his place. He had a huge house with 3 guest bedrooms, though he only used one. The other 2 stayed locked because he kept personal belongings in them. I stayed in the guest room next to one of the locked rooms. Later that night, I started hearing strange noises from the locked room. I asked Paul about it, but he said it was nothing and told me to go back to sleep. About 30 minutes later, I heard a faint tapping on the wall and then a quiet voice. I ran to Paul's room, and this time he took me seriously. He grabbed the keys and unlocked the room. The window was wide open and the closet was empty. All his valuables were gone. We ran to the 3rd guest room and caught sight of a black figure jumping out the window onto the patio roof. We ran outside, but he was gone. Inside, we found something worse. White sheets stained with blood, A butcher knife on the floor with blood spots and signs that someone had been living there for over a week. They'd been eating his food, staying hidden in the locked rooms, and stealing his stuff. We immediately called the police, but they didn't find anything or anyone. Paul lost a ton of money that day, and he was never able to replace some of his stolen items. It's been a week since then, and I still can't get the image of that black figure out of my head. Every time I try to sleep, I see that figure standing over me. My buddies think it's hilarious, but I'm starting to freak out a bit. Reddit user Double-Edged Sword asks, "What was that black figure?" I have a few guesses, but let's just say none of them are good. Well, OP, I hate to break it to you, but I think that black figure is your imagination. Your mind playing tricks on you. You got scared once, and now your brain's trying to protect you from that fear. See, when you think about it, it makes sense. You and your wife had a fight. You went to your friend's house to cool off and get away from the situation. Your friend had recently had a break-in or maybe an extended stay from some squatters. Either way, there was already signs of a struggle in that house before you even arrived. So when you heard noises in the middle of the night, your mind automatically jumped to the worst possible conclusion. Was it an intruder? Was it a home invader? Was it a crazed fan who knew where you lived and wanted to do you harm? Who knows? The fact of the matter is, your brain went into overdrive. Let's take the part where you say you saw a black figure jumping from the window. How could you tell it was a figure? Was it dark outside? Could you actually see anything, or are you imagining what you want to imagine? And if you didn't see anything, why would you assume that there was a person there? You heard a noise, maybe it was a branch, maybe it was an animal, maybe it was a twig snapping under someone's weight. But instead of thinking that maybe it was no big deal, your brain turned it into a horror movie scene. And then when you and your friend checked the room, everything was missing. But missing what? The room was empty, sure, but how do you know that it wasn't empty before you got there? You didn't see any of the stuff before, so you have no frame of reference to know if anything was actually taken. It's very possible that those items were already gone, and you just didn't notice. Or maybe the stuff was never there to begin with. Your friend just has a habit of making up tall tales to impress people. Finally, the blood. Yeah, that doesn't seem to add up either. If someone had broken in and stole all your stuff, do you really think that they would have taken the time to lay down and watch you sleep, only to be interrupted by your friend coming into the room? No. If it was a home invasion gone wrong, wouldn't they have left? Wouldn't they have run as soon as they realized that somebody else was in the house? Look, I'm not saying that you're lying or making this up. I'm just saying that there's another explanation here. You saw a pair of eyes staring at you in the dark, but those were just the eyes of a cat or a dog. That thump in the wall was just a mouse or a squirrel, and that black figure that you saw jumping from the window was just a shadow cast by a tree. Don't let your mind trick you into thinking that you're going crazy. There's a perfectly reasonable explanation for all of this. You just have to find it. I grew up in a small town, so when my friend Jordan invited me over for a sleepover, I jumped at the chance to finally do one. I mean, we were 10 years old. At the time, Jordan's house was like a mansion to me. He had a huge basement, complete with a pool table and a giant TV. We stayed up playing video games until 1 a.m. before we both crashed on the couches, sometime in the night. I woke up, and I could have sworn the TV was still on. It was casting a dim light on the wall in front of me, and in the far corner by the stairs, I could just barely make out a tall object. I couldn't tell what it was, though. I was half asleep, so I just closed my eyes and tried to go back to sleep. Then the TV turned off and the room was plunged into darkness. I panicked a little, laying still until I fell asleep again. I never heard Jordan move around in the night, and I assumed he had moved to his own bed upstairs because his parents would have killed us if they found out we were still awake. In the morning, I woke up to horrid screaming coming from upstairs. I sat bolt upright on the couch and immediately started to climb the stairs. As I got closer, I could hear Jordan's mom crying and his dad yelling back at her, "What's wrong? What happened?" His dad came barreling out of the bedroom and started searching the house. I don't know what he was looking for, but I gathered it must have been important because he was clearly frantic. I remember Jordan running up behind me and asking, "What's going on?" But I didn't answer him. I was too scared to speak, even though whatever it was that had woken Jordan's mom up had nothing to do with me. I followed his dad around like a lost puppy until he went back to his room and closed the door. Then I went to find Jordan and told him what I'd seen the night before. That's when he told me that his parents had argued in the middle of the night. Apparently, his mom had gotten out of bed to go to the bathroom, and as she was walking back, she had seen a tall, dark figure standing by their bedroom door. He said that she had screamed, and that woke his dad up. They both started to search for an intruder, but they couldn't find any signs of entry anywhere. And when the police came, they agreed that it must have just been a dream. But this was no dream. I saw it too. To this day, I'm not sure if it was a ghost or what, but it was definitely not a dream. As I got older, I stopped seeing it every now and then. I'd catch a glimpse of a dark figure in the corner of my eye, but when I'd turn to look properly, I'd never be able to see it. It wasn't until I was 18 that I saw it one last time. I was home from college for the summer, and I was hanging out with some friends. We were all goofing around in Jordan's basement, trying to keep ourselves entertained by making up stories about all the strange things we'd seen down there over the years. I'd told them about the tall, dark figure I used to see, but they just laughed at me until we stopped and stared at the corner where I used to see the thing. One of my friends suggested we should check it out, so we all crowded around it, straining to see in the shadows. And that's when I saw it again, only a few feet away from me, a tall, dark figure standing in the corner. It looked humanoid, but it was kind of translucent and shimmery, like heat waves rising off of asphalt on a summer day. It took a step toward us, and that was enough for me. I screamed and ran upstairs, hiding in Jordan's old bedroom. My friends followed, and we all decided to stay up there until morning. Years later, I asked Jordan if his mom ever told him what she saw that night. He told me she never really spoke about it, but one time she admitted to seeing the same tall, dark figure standing in the basement. The last time I asked her about it, she just laughed and changed the subject. Maybe what we saw that night wasn't a ghost, maybe just a figment of our imaginations. Or maybe it's still down there in the basement, waiting for the next unsuspecting kid to stumble upon it.